In our headlines on this Friday afternoon, November 10th, here in South Korea, Israel has reportedly agreed to 4-hour daily pauses in its military operations to allow civilians in northern Gaza safe passage away from Israel's counteroffensive against Hamas strongholds. Meanwhile, top diplomats of Seoul and Washington are calling on Beijing to take on a constructive role in its response to growing military collaboration between Pyongyang and Moscow. And on the global literary scene, International Booker Prize winner Kang is bringing home another prestigious award, this time from France, for a 2021 novel, I Do Not Bid Farewell. Israel is putting in place a 4-hour daily pause in its offensive against Hamas to allow civilians in northern Gaza the chance to flee the fighting and to seek safety elsewhere. Now, this is according to the Biden administration. Our Choi Soo-young starts us off.
The White House has said Israel has agreed to make daily 4-hour humanitarian pauses in northern Gaza to enable civilians to find safe areas. The pauses will start on Thursday. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby said Israel makes its own decisions, not the U.S., and there will be no military operations in the region during the pause. The Israeli military will announce each day's 4-hour humanitarian pause and its location at least 3 hours in advance. Moreover, Kirby said Israel will open a coastal road as a second corridor for civilians heading south. According to the Israeli official on Thursday, after a first corridor along Gaza's main north-south highway was opened several times this week, more than 80,000 people used it to flee northern Gaza. However, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has stated that the humanitarian pauses are not a ceasefire and they could only come with the release of all hostages taken by Hamas.
There will be no ceasefire without the release of our hostages. Anything else is futile.
On the same day, Israel Defense Forces spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari uploaded on social media that Israel's ground operation is ongoing in the military quarter, the main base of Hamas inside Gaza City. The IDF said Israeli infantry and armored units entered the zone to destroy Hamas facilities, killing around 50 Hamas members. They found tunnels and weapons facilities and discovered Hamas military bases and command centers. Israel's defense minister Yoav Gallant said the IDF is developing new ways to enter or destroy tunnels without harming hostages, and the fighting will not stop until all hostages are rescued safely. Choi Soo-young, Arirang News.
Here in Seoul, Foreign Minister Park Jin and his U.S. counterpart Antony Blinken have urged China to take on a constructive role in its response to growing military collaboration between North Korea and Russia. Our Foreign Affairs correspondent Pei Eun-ji covers their related remarks.
Top diplomats of South Korea and the U.S. on Thursday called on China to play a constructive role in dealing with North Korea's deepening military ties with Russia. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who arrived in South Korea the day before, warned that the situation is very concerning after holding a meeting with Seoul's Foreign Minister Park Jin. In a joint press conference, Blinken explained that the U.S. is seeing a two-way street when it comes to ties between Pyongyang and Moscow.
We're seeing the DPRK provide military equipment to Russia for pursuing its aggression against Ukraine, but we're also seeing Russia provide technology and support to the DPRK for its own military programs.
He also stressed the importance of China's role in pulling North Korea back from what he called the regime's irresponsible and dangerous behavior.
China has a unique relationship with North Korea. As a result of that relationship, it has real influence, and we do look to China to use that influence to play a constructive role in pulling North Korea back from this irresponsible and dangerous behavior.
Seoul's Foreign Minister Park Jin also said it will not be beneficial to China's national interests if tensions in the East Asia region continue to escalate due to arms cooperation between Russia and North Korea.
South Korea and the US will work together to call on China to address concerns from neighboring countries, as well as the international community, so that it can play its role to make sure this kind of dangerous deal does not happen.
Ahead of his meeting with PAC, Blinken also met President Yoon over lunch. Yoon said now is a time when U.S. leadership is becoming increasingly important due to instability in the Middle East, along with the issue of North Korea and the war in Ukraine, and vowed to work closely with Washington. In response, Blinken said U.S. foreign policy remains focused on the Indo-Pacific region and that Washington intends to further strengthen its strategic partnership with Seoul. Peunji, Arirang News.
And top defense officials of Seoul and Washington are scheduled to sit down here in Korea next week for their annual security talks. Our Lee Kyung-won covers their agenda.
South Korea and the United States are holding their 55th Security Consultative meeting next Monday in Seoul. The defense minister on Thursday said talks between South Korea's defense minister Shin Won-sik and his U.S. counterpart Lloyd Austin will be focused on developing the Seoul-Washington alliance into one of the world's best. A defense ministry official highlighted the significance, saying that it is the first SCM after the Yoon-Biden summit, as well as the Camp David Trilateral summit with Japan held this year. The two ministers are set to discuss ways to ramp up Washington's extended deterrence against North Korea's provocations and strengthen cooperation in defense science and technology. The following day, Shin and Austin will also attend a defense ministerial meeting in Seoul between South Korea and the 17 United Nations Command member states. Seoul's defense ministry said the participating countries will urge North Korea to stop its unlawful activities, abide by UN Security Council resolutions, and adopt a joint declaration calling for a collective response at times of emergency on the Korean Peninsula. The ministry said it will also discuss ways to cooperate with the UN command.
Our military is continuously strengthening cooperation with the UN command to deter war and maintain peace on the Korean Peninsula. In that regard, we are currently discussing ways for the Korean military to take part in the UN command's general staff. However, nothing is currently set on the scale or which position.
On the occasion of Austin's visit to South Korea, defense ministers of Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo are widely anticipated to hold a three-way meeting as well to discuss trilateral security cooperation, possibly including the sharing of real-time data of Pyongyang's missile launches. Lee Kyung-won, Arirang News.
Leaders of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation are heading to San Francisco to attend this year's event that begins this coming weekend. That being said, my colleague Chairman Powell covers the broader agenda ahead.
The 2023 Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit, or APEC, kicks off on Saturday in San Francisco. This year's event is hosted by U.S. President Joe Biden under the theme, Creating a Resilient and Sustainable Future for All. World leaders from 21 member economies, including South Korea, Japan, and possibly China, are expected to take part, although Russia, currently engaged in war with Ukraine, will reportedly not attend. With leaders set to hold discussions next week, all eyes are on whether the leaders of the U.S. and China will hold their own summit talks. Presidents Joe Biden and Xi Jinping last met each other on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Bali last year. Pundits are hinting at possible signs of improvement to thorny relations caused by trade disputes and an alleged Chinese spy balloon that passed over the U.S. early this year. The meeting between the leaders would follow Washington's recent push to stabilize tense ties, including a series of cabinet-level meetings. Ahead of the APEC summit, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen met with Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng on Thursday to limit the economic fallout caused by tensions between Washington and Beijing. Yellen said she seeks open and substantive discussions with China and a healthy economic relationship that benefits both countries over time.
As I said, the United States has no desire to decouple from China. A full separation of our economies would be economically disastrous for both of our countries and for the world.
Her Chinese counterpart in response said Beijing is also seeking effective measures to improve their economic and trade relations. Meanwhile, also taking place next week is the APEC CEO Summit, bringing CEOs and entrepreneurs together for dialogue on global opportunities and challenges that are shaping economic, environmental, and societal trends in the region. The 21 member economies are home to around 3 billion people and represent approximately 62% of world GDP and half of the world's trade. Chairman Powell, Arirang News.
Unionized workers of Seoul Metro, the operator of subway lines 1 to 8, are staging a second day of strikes today that will all end at 6 p.m. this evening. Now, over 10,000 unionized workers walked out on Thursday to protest the company's downsizing plans. Disruptions were limited during morning rush hour, with trains running as normal from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. But beyond these hours, delays are expected as operations will be reduced to around 80% of usual service. Back on Thursday, commuters experienced delays during evening rush hour, with some trains on Line 2 running more than 40 minutes behind schedule. In other news, U.S. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell has hinted at the possibility of rate hikes in the future, despite 2 straight sessions of steady rates. Addressing an International Monetary Fund audience in Washington on Thursday, he added more work may be needed to fight inflation, as the U.S. Central Bank is aware that a resilient economy could hinder efforts to curb price pressures. Now, given the bank's target inflation of 2%, Powell claimed there was a long way to go as current American inflation stands at 3.7%. On the local front, regulators here banned short selling of stocks starting this past Monday in line with efforts to crack down on naked shorting. So what does this mean and what have been the ripple effects of this ban? Our finance correspondent Moon Hae-ryan reports.
On Sunday afternoon, the South Korean government announced a temporary ban on short selling when investors trade with borrowed shares. The reason cited was to weed out naked shorting, which is an illegal practice of selling shares that might not actually exist, by making improvements to the current shorting system. Just a few weeks ago, the country's financial watchdog imposed record-high fines on 2 international investment banks for this practice. This is the 4th time that short selling's been prohibited, and the Financial Services Committee cited global economic uncertainty as another reason. The very first day of trade after the announcement showed the country's benchmark Kospi surging to its largest one-day rise in over 3 years, as well as a hike in the tech-heavy Kosdaq. This surge led to the activation of the Kosdaq sidecar limit, which is activated when there is a rise of more than 6% compared to the previous close. Over the next few days, stocks saw consecutive declines as foreign investors turned into net sellers, but the decline showed signs of slowing across Tuesday and Wednesday before rising again on Thursday. Some analysts say that this volatility is a result of foreign investors leaving the market.
There's a possibility that as institutions and foreign investors are unable to short sell, they also won't be able to keep up the same proportion of going long and therefore damage the soundness of the financial market.
Others say it's less about foreign investors and more about the psychological effects of the ban on individual investors, meaning that the market will stabilize soon.
I think the market rise in the first day was more psychological than real, because so many individual investors had negative feelings about the market from the short selling.
The government is using this period to make improvements to level the playing field between domestic retail investors and institutional and foreign investors. There are also concerns about the ban preventing the upgrade of South Korea's stock market by Morgan Stanley Capital International to developed market status. Finance Minister Chu Kyung-ho addressed these concerns, saying that the government will continue to work on reforms until next June. Moon Hae-ryan, Arirang News.
Samsung Electronics accounted for 84% of the total domestic smartphone sales in the 3rd quarter. Pundits believe the release of Samsung's latest phones, the Galaxy Z Flip 5 and Fold 5, played a pivotal part in keeping Samsung at the top. Apple products took up 15% of the total smartphone market share here, with a 2 percentage point increase on year. Overall, global technology research firm Counterpoint Research points out sales of smartphones here in Korea fell 10% on year, with 3.4 million phones sold. Back on Thursday, Korea kicked off this year's Science and Tech Fair to share the latest in space advances and more. Shin Se-byuk was there.
A snake-shaped robot navigates through a small tube. It is designed to conduct rescue operations in disaster situations. Meet Korea's indigenous space technology from the country's first lunar orbiter, Danuri, to the homegrown space rocket, Nuri. An array of homegrown scientific technologies from South Korea are showcased at the Gwacheon National Science Museum in Gwacheon, just south of Seoul. At the Korea Science and Technology Fair, South Korea's state-of-the-art technology for the future, as well as items featured at the world's biggest tech fair, the CES, are on display. There are two main parts, the cutting-edge technology pavilion and the flagship technology pavilion. At the former, people can explore Korea's scientific innovations in leading fields such as space, robots, and quantum technologies. This bio-inspired bird-shaped robot mimics how birds flap their wings. This enables it to fly with greater agility than traditional drones. Korean-developed quantum computer technology can also be found. Quantum computers are capable of solving complex problems faster than any other supercomputer.
We are currently developing a 20-qubit quantum computer with plans to achieve a 50-qubit scale by 2026.
Other technologies such as Samsung's latest OLED technologies and Kai's quadruped robots are also on display. The flagship technology pavilion is where people can explore the latest achievements in leading future industries such as bio, hydrogen, and rechargeable batteries. The Ministry of Science and ICT aims for this fair to facilitate collaborations between Korean scientists and international institutions.
This year, foreign diplomatic missions have been invited to explore our scientific achievements with the hope of potential international research collaborations between Korean and foreign scientists.
Other programs besides the main sections include lectures and forums on the latest research trends, as well as the Family Zone where people can experience various technologies. The Korea Science and Technology Fair 2023 runs until November 12th. 신세벽, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, on the global literary scene, Korean author Kang has secured critical acclaim over in France for her novel I Do Not Bid Farewell. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
Famed South Korean author Kang won a prestigious French literary award on Thursday for her 2021 novel I Do Not Bid Farewell. Her novel was chosen as the winner of the Prix Médicis Award for Foreign Literature. The Prix Médicis Award, founded in 1958, is considered one of the top literary awards honoring fictional work in France. In 1970, the foreign literature category was added to award books published in translation. Published 5 years after Han won the International Booker Prize for The Vegetarian, her latest award-winning novel describes the events surrounding the April 3, 1948 incident on South Korea's Jeju Island from the perspective of 3 women. The government of the day suppressed civilian protests against U.S. military rule, leading to the deaths of up to 30,000 people. The French edition of the novel was published in August. Han was shortlisted for the award in October and becomes the first Korean author to have won this award. She was previously nominated for Prix Médicis in 2017 for her 2011 novel Greek Lessons. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. Myanmar's military-led government is under threat from a series of major coordinated offensives in the country's northeast Shan state. This comes as an alliance of 3 ethnic insurgent armies and other anti-government groups took control of military outposts as well as roads used for overland trade with China. The junta-installed president, former General Mint Swe, said Thursday that the country is at risk of breaking apart if the government continues to fail to manage the latest wave of violence. Attacks by the insurgent groups in Shan State began on October 27th, with the government responding with air and ground strikes that left thousands fleeing their homes. Representatives from the alliance, which includes the Arakan Army and the Taang National Liberation Army, said the attacks were to put an end to an oppressive military dictatorship. They also said they wish to destroy cyber scamming centers operating in the Shan State region that reportedly fund Myanmar's military. The current military government seized power in February 2021 by staging a coup against the then President Aung San Suu Kyi.
In Spain, veteran politician Alejandro Vidal Quadras has been shot in the face in broad daylight on a central Madrid street. The 78-year-old right-wing lawmaker was shot around 1:30 p.m. local time on Thursday near his home and is recovering in hospital. Vidal Quadras was shot once by an individual wearing a black helmet who then fled the scene on a motorbike driven by a getaway driver. Police said they would not rule out any motive for the shooting, adding that links to an Iranian opposition group, the exiled Mujahideen-e-Khalq, were being investigated. Vidal Quadras was a long-time member of Spain's right-wing Popular Party and has previously served as its regional leader in Catalonia, as well as having been a long-time member of the European Parliament. In the US, surgeons in New York announced on Thursday that they had completed the first successful transplant of an entire eyeball. 46-year-old Aaron James from Arkansas suffered a work accident in June 2021 involving a high-voltage power line that destroyed most of his face and left eye. He also lost his left arm in the incident. Despite James having no sight in the eye following the operation in May, surgeons at NYU Langone Health said the eye looks remarkably healthy and may yet be capable of transmitting neurological signals to the brain. Team leader Dr. Eduardo Rodriguez called the transplant a major step forward. In Colombia, footballer Luis Diaz's father, who was kidnapped 12 days ago, has been released. Both of the Liverpool forward's parents were kidnapped on October 28th by armed men on motorbikes at a gas station in their hometown of Barrancas, Colombia. His mother, however, was rescued within hours by the police. The Colombian government said last week that Luis Diaz's parents were kidnapped by the ELN, or National Liberation Army guerrilla group. The ELN's leadership later acknowledged the kidnapping, admitted it was a mistake, and ordered the father's release. The 26-year-old footballer, who joined Liverpool last year, is considered one of the key players on Colombia's national team. Kim Ji-young, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. What a dramatic change in weather in just one day. It has gotten so much colder today. Seoul saw the season's lowest this morning and feels like temperatures were below 0 degrees Celsius. Afternoon highs are going down more than 10 degrees lower than yesterday. Then weekend morning commuters in central parts of the country need to brace for even colder mornings below sub-zero temperatures. Instead of a chill, southern provinces had a rainy start to Friday. After the rain lets up, the skies will clear, but we need to stay bundled for the afternoon. Seoul sees a high of 7 degrees, Daegu topping out at 13 degrees this afternoon. Meanwhile, strong wind alerts are in place in parts of Jeollado, west of Jeju, and Ulleungdo and Dokdo. Take precautionary measures against strong gusts. Stay warm through early next week. We can expect temperatures to return to normal in the middle of next week. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
And those are the top stories at this hour here in Korea. Coming up right after this break is our panel session. Do stay with us.